Cancer. There is a particular kind of silence that arrives before a true beginning. It is not the silence of nothing happening. It is the silence that occurs when so much is happening all at once in places you cannot yet see, that the surface of your life has temporarily quieted because everything underneath is in motion. You may have noticed this silence in recent days. The quality of your hours feeling slightly different even when nothing visible has changed. Conversations landing differently. Decisions feeling weightier than their content seems to warrant. Small moments arriving with an unusual sense of importance attached to them, as though something inside you is registering data your conscious mind has not yet processed. That silence is what I want to explore with you, because the silence is the shape of what is approaching, and the shape contains information. I want to tell you what is being prepared, but I want to do so by walking around it the way you might walk around a structure that is being built behind a curtain. You cannot yet see the structure directly, but you can observe the activity around the curtain. You can notice the materials being delivered. You can hear the sounds of construction. You can sense from these signs the general shape of what is being built even before the curtain comes down. The reading I am bringing you today is a description of those signs. The structure itself will reveal itself in its own time. What I can do is help you understand what to listen for, what to watch for, what is gathering on the other side of the curtain. The first sign that a true new beginning is approaching is a peculiar reluctance to engage with the old configuration of your life. You may have noticed this in yourself recently. Tasks that used to feel important have begun to feel slightly hollow. Routines that used to provide structure have begun to feel like containers for energy that is no longer fully present. People who used to be central to your daily experience have begun to feel slightly more distant, not because they have changed, but because something in you has been quietly relocating to a position from which the old arrangement looks different. This relocating is not a problem. It is the early movement of a self that is preparing to inhabit a different configuration. The reluctance is not laziness. It is the natural disengagement that precedes a re-engagement with something else. Trust it. Do not push yourself to perform enthusiasm for a chapter that is winding down. Allow it to wind down. Its winding down is part of how the new chapter gets to begin. The second sign is the arrival of small synchronicities that, taken individually, seem like coincidences, but that, taken together, suggest a pattern. Names that keep appearing, phrases that keep finding you, numbers that you keep noticing, references to themes that, when you put them next to each other, point in a particular direction. These synchronicities are not metaphysical noise. They are the leakage of an underlying coherence into your conscious awareness. Something is organizing itself in your life, and the organizing is producing small surface signals that you are picking up without yet being able to fully decode. The decoding will come later. For now, simply notice the signals. Track them, even informally. The pattern they form will become legible when the structure itself is revealed. The third sign is a particular kind of dreaming. Not necessarily literal dreams, although there may be those as well. The dreaming I mean is the kind that occurs in unguarded moments, when your mind drifts and produces images of futures that you have not consciously been planning. These images are often vivid. They have a clarity that surprises you. They include details you had not been aware of generating. They feel less like fantasy and more like memory of something you have not yet lived. This kind of dreaming is the deeper part of you previewing what is approaching. Your soul, or whatever name you prefer for the part of you that operates beneath conscious awareness, knows what is coming and is allowing you small previews to begin acclimating to the change. The previews are real. They are not wishful thinking. They are early reception of information that has not yet fully arrived in your daily life. The fourth sign is a sense of personal urgency about issues that have been dormant. You may have noticed yourself recently returning to questions you had set aside. Concerns about who you are, about what you want, about how you have been living may have surfaced with unusual energy. This is not a regression. It is the activation of inner work that the new chapter requires. The questions are surfacing now because they need to be addressed before the new configuration arrives, and the inner work necessary to address them is being prioritized by the part of you that knows what is coming. Engage with the questions when they arise. Do not push them away. They are not detours. They are the preparation. The clarity you develop by sitting with them is the clarity you will carry into the new chapter as a foundation. I want to take a moment to address what kind of new beginning is approaching, because the phrase new beginning can mean many things. And the texture of what I am sensing for you is specific enough that I want to articulate it clearly. The beginning that is approaching is not narrowly about one domain of your life. It is not solely about love, or solely about work, or solely about location, or solely about any of the standard categories. It is more comprehensive than that. It is a beginning that involves a reorganization of how you relate to your own life as a whole. The reorganization will produce changes in many domains, but the changes are downstream of a deeper shift. The deeper shift is in the basic relationship between you and your own existence. The way you participate in your life is changing. Let me try to describe this more precisely. There has been a way you have been holding your life, a kind of grip that has been operating for so long you may not even be aware of it. The grip has involved a particular relationship to control, to outcomes, to the management of risk, to the maintenance of a certain self-image. The grip has not been bad, it has been adaptive. It has helped you function in conditions that required functioning. But the conditions are changing, and the grip is no longer required at the intensity at which you have been holding it. As the grip relaxes, you are going to discover that life, when held more loosely, produces different results than life held tightly. The different results will surprise you in ways that range from small to enormous. The relaxation of the grip is the new beginning, more than any specific external event. The external events that come will be expressions of the relaxation. They will be made possible by the shift in how you are holding your life. People who relate to their lives loosely receive different things than people who relate tightly. Doors open differently. Opportunities arrive differently. Relationships develop differently. The world responds to the inner posture in ways that are difficult to fully document, but that are real. You are about to encounter the difference. The difference is going to feel, more than anything, like the world becoming more responsive to you, even though what is actually changing is your relationship to the world. This is Cancer Tarot, and I want to share with you something specific about this kind of comprehensive shift. It is not common. Most lives do not undergo it. Most lives undergo smaller shifts in particular domains, while the basic relationship between the person and their existence remains essentially stable. What is happening to you is rarer. It is the kind of shift that in spiritual literature is sometimes described as the beginning of a different chapter of one's incarnation. The phrasing is dramatic, and I do not want to overstate, but the underlying observation is accurate. You are not just adjusting circumstances. You are entering a different way of being a person. The difference will reveal itself gradually, but the threshold is being crossed in this period. You can feel it. The feeling is not your imagination. I want to address what you may be experiencing in your body during this period, because shifts of this magnitude often produce physical correlates that are easy to misinterpret. You may have noticed unusual fatigue, even when you have not been working harder than usual. You may have noticed sleep patterns shifting, dreams becoming more vivid, energy levels fluctuating in ways that do not match obvious causes. You may have noticed emotional sensitivity that surprises you, with feelings surfacing that seem disproportionate to their apparent triggers. All of these can be expressions of the deeper shift working itself through your system. The body in periods of significant inner change has to recalibrate. The recalibration takes energy. The recalibration produces temporary instabilities. Be patient with yourself during this period. Do not interpret the physical correlates as evidence that something is wrong. They are evidence that something is reorganizing. The reorganization will settle. You will feel more stable on the other side. I want to talk for a moment about something I am sensing that has been particularly prominent in your inner life lately. There has been a thinning of certain certainties. Things you used to be sure of have started to seem less certain. Beliefs you used to hold firmly have become more porous. Identities you used to wear comfortably have started to feel slightly ill-fitting. This is not destabilization in a frightening sense. It is the necessary loosening that allows you to update your inner architecture. Old certainties have to soften before new ones can form. The thinning you are experiencing is the softening. It is uncomfortable in places, but it is also the precondition for what is being built. Allow the thinning. Do not grasp at certainties that are leaving. They are leaving for a reason. What replaces them will be more accurate, more spacious, more responsive to who you actually are now, rather than who you were when the original certainties were formed. There is a quality of permission that is starting to surface in your life, and I want to name it because permission is one of the most important elements of a true new beginning. There are things you have not been giving yourself permission to do, to feel, to want, to say. The permissions have been withheld for various reasons, some conscious, most unconscious. Some of those reasons were inherited from the family or culture you grew up in. Some were developed in response to particular relationships or situations. Some were simply absorbed from the general field of expectations you have been moving through. As the new beginning approaches, the permissions are starting to release. You may notice yourself doing things that previously would have felt off limits, saying things you would not have said, wanting things you would not have allowed yourself to want. This is the permission opening up. Receive it. The opening is part of the gift. I want to mention something about the specific people in your life who are going to be affected by this shift, because relational changes are often the most visible expression of an underlying transformation. Some of the people in your life are going to grow with you. Their connection to you will adapt to your changing shape. They will see you in your new configuration and find themselves engaged by it, even when it differs from what they were used to. These people are valuable. They have a flexibility of relationship that allows for evolution. Hold them close. Other people in your life will struggle with the shift. Their connection to you was calibrated to a previous version of you, and they may not be willing or able to update their calibration. They will subtly or not so subtly try to draw you back to the old configuration. They will reference the way you used to be. They will express concern about the changes they are observing. They will, in some cases, become slightly distant, not because they are angry, but because they do not know how to relate to the new version. Some of these relationships will recover their footing as everyone adjusts. Others will gradually fade. The fading is not a tragedy. It is the natural consequence of relationships that were structured around a configuration that no longer exists. New relationships will form to fill the spaces that open. The new relationships will be more aligned with who you are becoming. Trust the redistribution. I want to address a particular concern that may arise during this period. There may be moments when you feel that you are losing yourself. The shifts may produce a temporary sense of disorientation about who you actually are as the old self loosens and the new self has not yet fully cohered. I want to reassure you about this. You are not losing yourself. You are letting go of an outer layer that you had identified with in order to become more fully who you actually are at a deeper level. The disorientation is temporary. The deeper self is intact and is in fact becoming more accessible as the outer layer thins. After the transition completes, you will find yourself feeling more like yourself, not less. The you that emerges on the other side of the shift is the more authentic version. Trust the process even in the moments when it feels unsettling. There is a practical orientation I want to suggest for this period. Reduce where possible the amount of stimulation you absorb. Not in a rigid way, but in a general way. Lives undergoing significant shifts tend to integrate more smoothly when there is not too much external noise competing for the attention that is needed for inner work. This may mean spending some quieter time, reading less news than usual, watching fewer screens, having fewer conversations that drain rather than nourish. The reduction in stimulation is a form of giving the shift the conditions it needs to complete. You do not have to be ascetic. You only have to choose, when choices arise, in favor of quiet over noise, more often than you might in other periods. I also want to suggest that you write things down during this period, even if you have not been a person who typically writes. The act of writing engages a different mode of processing than thinking alone. When you write, you allow the inner movements to find articulation, and the articulation helps the movements complete. You do not need to write anything formal. Notes, fragments, single sentences that capture something you are noticing about your inner state. These small acts of articulation create a record that you will value later, and they also serve in the moment as a way of honoring what is happening. The writing is a form of acknowledgement. The acknowledgement is part of what allows the shift to deepen. I want to share something about the time horizon of this transition. The new beginning is not going to fully unfold in a few days. It is also not going to take a decade. It is an unfolding that will reveal itself across a span of months, with the most intensive shifts occurring in a particular window that is approaching now. Within that window, several major movements will occur, and the cumulative effect of those movements will produce a recognizable transition. After the window, the shifts will continue more gradually, integrating into the daily texture of your life. By the time a year has passed from this current moment, you will be inhabiting a life that is recognizably different from the life you have been inhabiting. The difference will not be jarring. It will feel in some ways more natural than the life you are leaving behind, but it will be a different life. I want to mention something about the relationship between this transition and a sense of meaning. Some of what you have been doing in recent years has been done partly out of duty, partly out of habit, partly out of inertia. As the new beginning unfolds, these motivations will become less effective at moving you. You will find yourself less able to do things just because you have been doing them. The need for actual meaning, actual alignment, actual sense that what you are doing matters is going to become more intense. This intensity is not a problem. It is the engine that drives you toward configurations that actually fit who you are becoming. Listen to it. When something stops feeling meaningful, do not try to force the meaningfulness back. Let the dwindling of meaning be the signal it is. The signal points away from configurations that are not yours and toward configurations that are. Here on Cancer Tarot, I want to offer a particular framing of what makes a true new beginning different from the many smaller resets people experience throughout their lives. A reset is when you change something about your circumstances while remaining essentially the same person. A new beginning is when the person changes and the circumstances reorganize around the changed person. You have probably had many resets over the years. You have not necessarily had many true new beginnings. What is approaching is the second kind. The person you are becoming is meaningfully different from the person you have been, and the circumstances of your life are going to reflect that difference, not because you have engineered the reflection, but because circumstances naturally adjust to the people who inhabit them when those people change at a deep enough level. I want to address what is being asked of you in this transition, because there is something being asked, although it is gentler than the typical demands of growth. You are being asked to allow, not to resist, not to grasp, not to manage, just to allow. Allow the old to leave, allow the new to enter, allow the disorientation that occurs in between. Allow the discomfort of not being fully able to articulate what you are going through. Allow the reactions of others. Allow your own emotions, including the unexpected ones. Allow the slowing that the integration requires. Allow the speeding up when the integration completes. The asking is throughout, simply to allow. The allowance is the practice. It is harder than it sounds because the parts of us that are accustomed to managing tend to interpret allowance as passivity and resist it. Allowance is not passivity. It is active openness to what is unfolding. It is engaged trust. I want to share something about what tends to be on the other side of transitions of this magnitude. People who have undergone such transitions often report that the life they ended up with was both unexpected and exactly right. Unexpected because the specific shape of the new life was not something they had been planning toward. Exactly right because it fit them in ways their previous planning could not have produced. The combination of unexpectedness and rightness is a signature of true transformations. The right life cannot be planned in advance because the version of you who would have done the planning is not the version of you who will inhabit the new life. The new life is designed by, or at least available to, the new self. The new self can recognize its own life when the life arrives, even though it could not have specified the life in advance. You will recognize yours. The recognition is one of the deepest forms of arrival. I want to mention the specific texture of some of the changes that will occur. There will be one or two relationships that develop or deepen in ways that surprise you. There will be one or two opportunities that arrive from directions you were not watching. There will be at least one decision you make during this period that, in retrospect, will appear to have been pivotal even though it did not feel pivotal at the time. There will be a moment when you understand something about yourself that you have not understood before, and the understanding will reorganize how you relate to large portions of your past. There will be a renewal of energy in some area where you had been depleted. There will be a quieting of a worry that has been with you for a long time. These are the kinds of textures the transition will produce. Not every one of these will look like the others, but you will recognize them as they occur, and they will form the substance of how the new beginning becomes visible. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the part of you that is tired. Beginnings, even good ones, ask something of the person undergoing them. You have already been giving a great deal to your life. You have been showing up. You have been doing the work. You may, at this point, be wondering whether you have the capacity for what is unfolding. I want to address that worry directly. The capacity for what is being asked of you is being supplied to you in step with the asking. You are not being expected to provide it from your existing reserves. Each phase of the transition will come with the energy required for that phase. You will not run out. You will be tired sometimes, and the tiredness is appropriate. But you will not be depleted past what you can recover from. The system that is bringing this beginning is also taking care to ensure that you have what you need to receive it. Trust this. You will be supported. There is a quality of grace that is going to be available to you during this period that may not have been as available before. Grace in this sense is the experience of receiving what you need without having to manufacture it through effort. People going through true transitions often report receiving a kind of help that they cannot trace, that does not announce itself, but that arrives at exactly the moments when it is needed, a small windfall. An unexpected kindness, a timely insight, a practical resource that materializes from a direction you were not watching. These graces are not earned in the conventional sense. They are simply available, more available than they have been at other times in your life, because the transition is supported by something larger than your individual effort. Receive these graces when they arrive. Do not interrogate them. Do not feel guilty about them. They are part of how the transition is meant to occur. I want to address what you may be noticing about your own intuition in this period. The intuition is sharpening. You are beginning to know things you have not been told. You are beginning to sense things before they happen. You are beginning to receive impressions of people and situations that turn out to be more accurate than your previous impressions. This sharpening is not a special gift that has suddenly been bestowed. It is the natural result of the inner alignment that is occurring. As the layers between your conscious mind and your deeper knowing thin, the deeper knowing begins to surface more frequently. Use this sharpened intuition. Trust it more than you have been trusting it. Let it guide you in moments when analytical thinking is not producing clear answers. The intuition is a more accurate compass for this period than analysis. It will lead you to the right choices even when the reasoning behind those choices is not yet articulable. I want to share one of the more specific things I am picking up. There is a decision in front of you or approaching you that is going to require a particular kind of courage. The decision will not be obvious. It may even seem on the surface like a relatively small matter, but the decision contains, encoded within it, a fork. One direction leads further into the new beginning. The other direction leads back toward the old configuration. The decision will not be clearly labeled. You will have to feel which direction is which. Trust the feeling. The right direction will produce a sense of expansion, even if it also produces some fear. The wrong direction will produce a sense of contraction, even if it also produces some relief. Choose expansion. The fear that accompanies expansion is the fear of growth. The relief that accompanies contraction is the relief of avoidance. Choose growth. The choice will be one of the load-bearing moments of this transition. I want to leave you with something about the larger meaning of what is occurring. Lives are not random. They have arcs. They have themes. They have phases that prepare for other phases. The phase you are entering has been prepared for by everything that came before. The difficulties were preparation. The waiting was preparation. The relationships that did not work out were preparation. The questions you have been holding were preparation. None of it was wasted. All of it was contributing to the readiness that now allows this transition to occur. You will see in time how each piece of your previous life contributed to the new chapter. The seeing will produce a profound peace about the past. Things that hurt will reveal their meaning. Things that confuse will become clear. Things that seemed wrong will be revealed as having been part of the right path. This retrospective integration is one of the deeper rewards of going through a true transition. Receive it gratefully when it begins to arrive. Here on Cancer Tarot, the closing of this transmission is also an opening into what comes next. I have walked you to the threshold. The crossing of the threshold is yours. The crossing does not require any specific action from you. It only requires your willingness. Be willing. The willingness is the entire gift you bring to this. The rest is given to you. You are about to become someone you have not been before, not because you are losing who you have been, but because who you have been is the foundation on which the new self gets to stand. The new self is not a replacement. It is an extension into territory you have not yet inhabited, but for which you have been preparing all along. The extension is going to feel, when it occurs, like coming into a fuller version of yourself. You will recognize the new self. You will not be a stranger to yourself. The new self has always been there, latent, waiting for the conditions that would activate it. The conditions have arrived. The activation is now occurring. Walk gently through the next stretch of your days. Do not push. Do not strain. Notice the silence I mentioned at the beginning and treat it as friendly. The silence is not the absence of life. It is the presence of preparation. Things are being arranged. Things are being delivered. Things are being woven together that have not been woven before. The weaving is happening on a schedule that does not require your management. Your job is to be available, attentive, and willing. The weaving will reveal its result in its own time. The result will be a life that fits you in a way no previous chapter has fit you. Trust the fit. It is being made for you by hands that know your measure. You are not at the end of anything that matters. You are at the beginning of something that will matter more than you currently realize. The beginning is real. The beginning is approaching. The beginning has your name on it, in handwriting that has been waiting to be read. Open your hands. Open your attention. Open your heart. What is approaching is good, and it is yours, and it is finding its way to you with a precision that has been calibrated to who you are now and who you are becoming. Let it come. Let it begin. Let yourself be the person at the threshold, finally crossing into the chapter that has been preparing itself for your arrival. The chapter is ready. So are you. Walk in.